She said my name like she was testing how it felt in her mouth, calm, low, almost careless. But nothing about her ever felt careless to me. It was late. Most of the office lights were already dead, computers asleep, chairs pushed in. She stood by the doorway with her bag slung over one shoulder, hair a little looser than it had been this morning. I was shutting down my screen when she spoke. "Walk me home." No smile. No question mark. Just quiet expectation, like she already knew I would. I didn't say yes. I didn't have to. I just grabbed my jacket and followed her to the elevator. We were the only two left on our floor. The ride down was silent, but it wasn't empty. She stood close enough that the sleeve of her coat brushed my arm when the elevator shifted. She didn't move away. Her name is Claire. Mid-40s, careful with her words, graceful without trying. Everyone in the office looks at her with some form of respect. I look at her like I'm trying not to. She doesn't talk about her personal life. She keeps her hair pinned when she works, keeps a calm voice even when others are losing theirs. But there's something underneath, something tired, maybe, or lonely. I've seen it in the way she stares at her coffee some mornings like she's someplace far from here. Outside, the air was cold enough to make her exhale visible. She wrapped her coat tighter, then glanced at me like she wasn't sure if she should say something or stay silent. "You're quiet tonight," she said. I could say the same. She gave the smallest hint of a smile, then started walking. Our footsteps had that dull sound shoes make on damp pavement. Streetlights cast everything in a soft, yellow tone, and each time we passed under one, her face caught the light just enough for me to see her eyes shift toward me. It didn't feel like walking a coworker home. It felt like walking beside someone who already knew what I wasn't saying. At one point, she touched my arm, not a grab, not an accident, just her fingers resting there for half a second as we crossed the street. "Do you always follow instructions this easily?" she asked. "Only when they come from you." That made her stop walking for just a breath of a moment. She didn't respond to it, but she didn't pretend she hadn't heard. Her building wasn't far, but when we reached it, she didn't stop. She looked at the entrance, then kept going like she'd changed her mind mid-step. I didn't ask. We turned down a quieter street. No cars. Just the soft hum of distant traffic and the rustle of trees shifting in a breeze. She slowed her pace, like she was thinking something over and hadn't settled on the outcome yet. "You don't have to walk this far," I said. "I know." The way she said it made something low in my stomach tighten. For a while, we didn't talk. Her hand brushed mine once, then again. The second time I thought she might take it, but she didn't. She just let her knuckles graze the back of my hand like she was testing whether I'd pull away. I didn't. She stopped walking near a small, closed cafe, its windows dark, the chairs stacked inside. She stood facing the glass, but her head tilted slightly toward me. Her voice came out softer than before. "Do you think people notice?" "Notice what?" "That you look at me longer than you should." I didn't answer. I think she already knew. She finally turned to face me fully. The distance between us wasn't much. A step, maybe less. Her breath mixed with mine in the cold air, and she searched my face like she was waiting for me to do something I hadn't decided on yet. Then, footsteps. Fast, approaching from the corner behind us. She didn't move. But her eyes shifted past my shoulder, and whatever she was about to say disappeared. The footsteps passed without stopping, just some guy jogging with headphones in, not even glancing our way. But the spell was broken just enough for her to step back, slow and controlled, like it was a choice she'd already regretted making. She didn't say anything on the walk back. Not at first. She kept her hands in the pockets of her coat, head slightly down. I matched her pace without thinking. "You know I was married once," she said, out of nowhere. I looked over at her. She didn't look back. "A long time ago," she added. "Didn't end badly. Didn't end well either. It just ended." I waited for more, but she didn't offer it. I'd heard whispers in the office about her, someone mentioning she never stayed at work events long, someone else saying she turned down a manager who asked her out. Nobody said it unkindly. Just curious, like she was a secret none of them would ever be close enough to solve. I'd never dated anyone seriously. A few months here and there, nothing that stuck. Nothing that made me step closer without weighing the cost. We reached her building again. This time she stopped at the entrance, but she didn't reach for the door. She turned toward me, leaning her shoulder against the brick like she needed something solid at her back. "You know what people would say," she said quietly. My throat felt tight. "About what?" She gave me a look that said not to play dumb. Then softer, "You're 24. And you're not," I said. That almost made her smile. Almost. Her eyes dropped to my mouth for a second, then away like it hadn't happened. "I'm 20 years older than you." 21, I said before I could stop myself. She huffed something like a laugh and shook her head, more at herself than at me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. A car passed at the end of the street, headlights sweeping over the sidewalk. She watched the light fade, then looked back at me with something unreadable. "You don't know what you'd be getting into," she said. "That's not true," I said. "I know exactly." She studied me like she didn't believe that. Or maybe she wished she didn't. A neighbor came out of the building then, holding a grocery tote and keys in hand. He glanced at us, then away, but the moment shifted again. She straightened, smoothing her coat, and I stepped back like I didn't want to be too close when someone was watching. After he passed, she hesitated. "Do you ever worry?" "About what?" "That you'll ruin something before it even starts," she said, eyes on the pavement. "I worry you'll decide it never should." She looked at me then. Long enough that my chest felt hot. She didn't hide the way her eyes moved over me that time. We stood there with the brick wall at her back and the cold air swirling between us. She reached up suddenly, not all the way, just enough for her hand to hover near my shoulder. She didn't touch me, but the space her fingers claimed felt warmer than my entire coat. Her voice was nearly a whisper. "You make it hard to walk away." My pulse kicked. "Then don't." She didn't answer. But her hand finally landed, light, steady, on my shoulder. She didn't speak, didn't step closer, but she didn't move away either. And for the first time, she let it stay there. Her hand stayed on my shoulder longer than either of us expected. She didn't seem to notice at first. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't want to be the one to pull away. The silence wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't something either of us tried to escape. Her fingers weren't gripping me, just resting there with this uncertain kind of softness, like she was testing what it meant to touch me at all. Then her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. She blinked and dropped her hand so quickly it almost looked like she'd been burned. The sound didn't stop, another buzz, then another. She fished for the phone without meeting my eyes. The screen lit her face from below. I couldn't see the name, but whatever she read tightened her jaw. Not anger, more like exhaustion. "You should go," she said, eyes still down. "Do you want me to?" She hesitated, then pressed the lock button and slipped the phone away. "I think I should say yes. But you don't." She finally looked at me then, and for a second there was no shield, no practiced calm. Just that flicker of something she kept buried until it betrayed her. "I didn't say that," she murmured. The building door clicked as someone exited, a woman with a takeout bag and headphones in, barely glancing our way. Even so, Claire stepped back like we'd been caught doing something we shouldn't. I shoved my hands in my jacket pockets before I reached for her again. She cleared her throat. "Come inside. Just for a minute. You're freezing." That wasn't why. We both knew it. But I followed her in. The lobby was warm, quiet except for the low hum of the elevator. She didn't press the button right away. She stood with her back to the mirrored wall, watching me like she was trying to decide if she should regret this already. "I live on the 4th floor," she said. I nodded once. "You're not coming up." I know. But she still wasn't moving. The elevator dinged somewhere above us, and voices floated down the stairwell, laughter, footsteps, the scrape of keys. She moved instinctively closer to me, shoulders angled slightly like she didn't want to be seen too near. Two men from the building came down the stairs mid-conversation. One glanced at us briefly. I looked away first. She did too, but only after. When the footsteps faded outside, we were left in the kind of silence that shouldn't feel intimate, but somehow did. I don't make good choices, she said quietly. You did tonight. She stared at me for too long after that. Then, without warning, she reached up and adjusted the collar of my coat. It was the smallest thing, the most ordinary excuse to touch me, but her fingers brushed my throat as she did it, and I forgot how to swallow for a second. You should go, she said again, softer this time. Do you want me to? I asked again. Her hand dropped. I don't know what I want. She did. But saying it out loud would make it real. Another buzz in her coat. She flinched but didn't check it. Is it him? I asked before I could stop myself. She looked at me sharply. There is no him. I didn't push. The elevator arrived and the doors slid open slowly, like they were watching us. She didn't step in. You're making this complicated, she said. I think it already was. A long pause stretched between us. She exhaled, eyes lingering at my mouth before lifting back to my face. If I kiss you, she said quietly, I won't be able to take it back. My pulse thudded. Then don't. She stared at me like she was trying to hate me for saying that. But she didn't move away. The elevator doors started to close on their own. She caught one with her hand but didn't step in. The motion pulled her closer to me, our bodies almost grazing. I didn't touch her. I don't know how I didn't. She leaned in, just a tilt, barely there, like her body was testing instincts her mind was trying to shut down. Her breath touched my cheek, warm and slow. Another buzz. Louder this time. She stepped back like she'd woken from something. I can't, she whispered. But her eyes betrayed her, lingering on me like the word had been meant for herself. Then stop trying, I said. She didn't argue. She just stood there, chest rising a little too deeply, hand still pressed on the elevator door she hadn't entered. And even with the distance she'd forced back between us, her body had never been closer. She didn't take the elevator. She let the doors close without her and walked toward the stairwell instead. I followed, not asking if I should. She didn't tell me to stop. The stairs were narrow and dim, the kind of lighting that makes everything feel quieter than it should. She didn't look back as she climbed, but she didn't speed up to lose me either. When we reached her floor, she pushed the door open and paused in the hallway, not to fish for keys, not to speak, just to breathe. I shouldn't have asked you to walk me, she said without turning around. You didn't, I said. You told me to. That made her close her eyes for half a second. When she opened them, she finally faced me. There was no distance left to hide behind. We stood close, the air between us warmer than the hallway should have allowed. Her voice dropped to something closer to honesty. You're too young to understand how this ends. And you're too smart to pretend you don't want it to start. That hit something in her. Not anger. Fear, maybe, the kind that comes when desire has gone too far to deny. She stepped back, but only because the wall was behind her. One more inch and she'd have nowhere else to go. I didn't reach for her. I just waited. Her eyes flicked to the side like she was checking if anyone was watching, even though the hallway was empty. Then she asked it, not as an accusation, but like she needed to hear it. Do you even know what you're doing? No, I said. Do you? Her breath caught in a way she didn't hide. Silence stretched, but not the cold kind. The kind like gravity, pulling everything inward. She lifted a hand slowly, not touching me, just hovering like she was afraid of what would happen if she finished the motion. Her fingertips brushed the front of my shirt, the lightest contact, like heat passing through fabric. "You look at me like I'm something you're allowed to want," she said. "And you look at me like you're afraid I'll notice you want me back." She flinched, just a flicker, and her hand curled slightly in the fabric of my coat before she realized she was holding it. A door down the hall opened suddenly. We both heard the latch click before we saw it. She moved so fast I almost didn't feel her hand leave my chest. Whoever it was didn't come out, but that tiny sound changed the air. "Inside," she murmured, not looking at me. She unlocked her door with shaking fingers. I followed her in, and she shut it behind us with more force than needed, like she was sealing something out, or in. The apartment was dark except for the streetlight leaking through the blinds. She didn't turn on any lamps. Didn't take off her coat. Didn't move farther than a few steps from the door. I stood there, waiting for her to tell me to leave. She didn't. Finally, she spoke, voice low and unsteady. "Someone at work asked if I was seeing anyone." She gave a short breath. "They assumed it was someone my age." "Is that what you wanted them to think?" She didn't answer. She just stepped closer, like she'd stopped deciding against it. I could smell her perfume now, something warm, faint, familiar from passing her desk 100 times. Her hair had come loose again, a strand brushing her cheek. Without thinking, I reached up and moved it behind her ear. My fingers barely grazed her skin, but she inhaled like I'd dragged fire across her. "I can't do this," she whispered. "You're already doing it." Her eyes lifted to mine, slow, reluctant, unguarded. And in that look, all the hiding she'd done broke for just a second. She leaned in. Not enough to touch. Just enough that her breath came against my neck, waiting, like she needed me to move first so she could blame me for it later. I didn't move away. She tilted her head, lips close enough that a single breath would close the distance, and then someone knocked on the door. The knock froze both of us. She didn't move at first. Her body stayed angled toward mine, her breath still close enough to feel. Then another knock, firmer this time. She stepped back so fast her shoulder hit the doorframe. I saw her throat move as she swallowed, trying to pull herself together. "Don't say anything," she whispered. She didn't check the peephole. She just opened the door a few inches. A voice, low, male. "Older. You weren't answering your phone." My stomach tightened before I even saw his face. He leaned into the crack in the door, trying to look inside. I stepped out of sight behind the wall. "I was busy," she said, her tone composed but too flat. "With who?" he asked. She stiffened, just a fraction. "That's not your concern anymore." My brows pulled together. "Anymore." He exhaled like he'd heard that before. "We both know that's not true." His hand brushed the door as he spoke, and it was way too familiar. I didn't like it. She pushed the door another inch closed, not enough to be rude, but enough to make a point. "It's late, Daniel." "Daniel." He hesitated, then said quietly, "You said you'd call after the meeting." Meeting? She hadn't mentioned one. She lied to him, then. Or at least avoided the truth. "I'm fine," she said. "Go home." He paused like he might push it, then stepped back. "Call me tomorrow." She didn't answer. She shut the door slowly, not slamming it, just letting the latch catch with a quiet, final click. The silence between us wasn't the same as before. She leaned her back against the door and didn't look at me. Her hand stayed on the wood, like she needed something solid to hold on to. "Who was that?" I asked. She didn't pretend not to hear me. "Someone I tried to stop seeing 3 months ago." "Tried?" She finally met my eyes. "He doesn't like endings." "And you didn't tell him about me?" Her jaw tightened. "There is no you and me." She said it too fast. Too defensively. I took a step toward her. She didn't move away, but her breath caught like her body didn't know what to do with me being that close again. "He thinks there could be something again," I said. She didn't deny it. Another step. Her eyes flicked to the front of my shirt, then back up. And you're still answering his calls, I said. I didn't, she said softly. Not tonight. The way she said it hit somewhere deep. I was close enough now that I could smell the trace of wine on her breath from earlier at the office. Her hand slipped from the door, fingers brushing mine by accident, or not. You think I'm worried about him? I asked. You should be, she said. But her voice didn't match the words. The space between us shrank again, not by accident this time. Our hands didn't hold, but the backs of our fingers touched, light, shaking, undecided. Her gaze dropped to my mouth again, and I saw it, the guilt, the want, the fear of both. You need to leave, she whispered. I won't, I said, just as quietly. She closed her eyes like she hated that answer, but her hand didn't move away from mine. And instead of opening the door again, she locked it. The click of the lock echoed louder than it should have. She didn't move right away. Neither did I. We just stood there, half in shadow, half in something we'd both been pretending not to feel for weeks. Her back stayed against the door, as if she needed something solid behind her before she let go of anything else. I took one step. Slow. Deliberate. She didn't tell me to stop this time. You shouldn't be here, she murmured, but her voice had no force behind it, just history, fear, habit. And yet, I said quietly. A breath hitched in her chest. Her hands were at her sides, fingers curled like she was holding on to her last bit of restraint. I could see it, she was bracing for the moment she'd either push me away or pull me closer. Another step. Now I was close enough that the heat from her body skimmed the front of mine. She lifted her eyes, and every layer she wore, age, control, the image she showed the world, felt thinner than a breath. You're making this harder, she said softly. No, I said. I think I'm making it honest. Her lips parted like she might argue, but nothing came out. Instead, she angled her face slightly away, not in rejection, more like protection. I raised my hand, slowly, giving her every chance to move. She didn't. My fingers brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. She exhaled, shakily, like the touch hurt and soothed her at the same time. This isn't fair to you, she said. I still turned aside. Let me decide what's fair. You don't understand, she whispered. I do. More than you think. She finally looked at me, and there it was, the confession without words, the want that had been circling us since the first night she asked me to stay late at work just to talk. You'll regret this, she said, but her voice was barely sound now. I won't. She swallowed, I sweeping my face like she was memorizing it one last time before running. I'm not who you think I am, she said. I stepped closer, so close our clothes brushed. Then show me who you really are. Silence stretched. Not empty, charged. Her hand lifted, almost without permission, fingertips grazing my forearm. The contact was feather-light, but it set every nerve in me on alert. She didn't pull back. If anything, she lingered, like she'd forgotten how to stop wanting something. Tell me to go, I said. She didn't. Look at me and tell me you don't want this, I said, barely above a breath. Her eyes met mine, steady, wide, undone. I can't, she said. That was the moment. The break. The truth. I moved even closer, and she didn't retreat. Her hands came up, not to push me away, but to brace against my chest like she needed the contact just to stay upright. We can't turn back after this, she whispered. We already passed the point of turning back, I said. Her forehead rested lightly against mine, one breath, one heartbeat, one choice. And this time, neither of us stepped away. For a long moment, we didn't rush anything. Her forehead rested against mine, and neither of us seemed ready to breathe too loudly, like one sudden move might break what had finally settled between us. My hand stayed at her waist, not pulling, not claiming, just there, steady, giving her space to meet me instead of feeling taken. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but real. I don't know how to do this without getting it wrong. You don't have to have it figured out, I said. She let out a breath that might have been a laugh or a release of weeks' worth of strain. You make it sound simple. No, I said. Just, worth it. Her eyes closed for a second like she was letting that sink in. Then she leaned forward, just slightly, letting her forehead press gently to my shoulder. It wasn't a kiss, wasn't an escape, it was trust, in the smallest, most honest form. I wrapped my arms around her, slow, waiting to feel if she tensed. She didn't. If anything, she softened into me, like her body had been holding back more than her voice ever admitted. Her fingers curled into the back of my shirt, not possessive, grounded. I spent so long convincing myself I was fine, she murmured into the fabric. Fine being alone, fine keeping things predictable. And then you walked into my life and ruined my plans. I smiled into her hair. You ruined mine first. She pulled back just enough to see my face. The dim light from the window traced the lines of hers, not harsh, not aging, just her. Beautiful in the way only someone who's lived through heartbreak and kept going can be. You're younger, she said, not as an accusation this time, more like a confession of something that had scared her. And you're not, I said with a soft shrug. We've both noticed. And I still want you. Her eyes softened, but I could see she was still searching for reasons to doubt. People will talk. They always do, I said. But none of them were just in this room with you. That landed somewhere deeper. I saw it in the way her shoulders lowered, tension unwinding like she'd been bracing for arguments I wasn't going to give. She touched my face then, fingers tracing along my jaw like she was studying something she'd finally allowed herself to want. There was nothing rushed about it. Nothing uncertain. Her thumb rested near my lips, and I kissed the inside of her wrist gently. She inhaled like she hadn't expected that to feel the way it did. Stay, she said. Not a command. Not a plea. An invitation. I will, I answered. We didn't tumble into anything dramatic. Instead, she led me to the couch by the window. We sat close enough that our legs pressed together, and she tucked herself into my side like it was the most natural thing in the world. I rested my arm around her shoulders, fingers brushing her arm in quiet circles. She laid her head against me. No hiding this time. Minutes passed without the need for words. Whatever tomorrow held, questions, opinions, complications, none of it felt bigger than this moment. She lifted her head only once more, met my eyes, and whispered, I don't feel alone right now. You're not, I said. And for the first time, she let herself believe it.